Hello. Hello, everybody. It's Christine here. And I am super excited to talk to you today. And I want to share a story with you that I think is going to resonate with you. It's a story where my first instinct was to think a certain way. And when I did that, it caused me a lot of anguish, and then something happened that made me change the way I was seeing it, and actually created an awareness and and more joy. And so I'd like to talk to you today about something called the self-coaching model. And this is something I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. This is something that will transform your life and it will bring you more joy. And the whole point of this self coaching model is about managing our thoughts. And that is something that I am so passionate about, right? Ultimately, it's about how we think. And so we're going to walk through this model. And I've been studying these things for years. And as you probably know, I've worked in culture and leadership, most recently with Disney and their advisory group. And previous to that, worked with John Maxwell as a leadership consultant. I'm a certified life coach. And I just love you and what you do as a human. Like, as human beings, I love understanding why we do what we do. I grew up in an environment with a lot of dysfunction, alcoholism, domestic violence, sexual abuse. And even as a kid, I just remember observing things and thinking, why do people do what they do? And when I was a kid, they would say I was like an old soul. And I don't know what that means, but it's a lot of it is about just that awareness and understanding myself. And when I learn about myself, just like for you, when you start to understand yourself and why you do what you do, then you can be a happier person, number one, because you have self awareness. And number two, it allows you to understand other people. And so, like, I don't know if you see this over here. I've got this thing. It says, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You are so powerful in how you think. So we're going to go through this self coaching model. And first, I want to share a story with you. I was driving, so I live in Atlanta, and 400 is one of the highways here. And, like everything around here, if you live in Atlanta, first of all, whoever joins, whether you're joining the recording or joining live, let me know where you're joining from. And I'm sure you'll relate to this if you've driven in any major cities. I'm driving on the highway 400 north, coming out of Atlanta. Everybody drives, 90 miles an hour. And this car comes up and it's tailgating me. And my first reaction, so the circumstances, this car's tailgating me. And my first thought is like, who is this lunatic? They're ticking me off. And, they're just, these people are coming to make my life miserable. And that made me feel like tension. Have you felt that, like on the highway? And kind of like anger. And my action, wasn't, I didn't do anything deliberate at that moment, but this is where, people lose it and like do crazy stuff. My action was just not driving any faster because I didn't, I was like, why is this person tailgating me? And the result was that it made me miserable. And ultimately, what happened is we were coming up. I forgot that the hospital is up in this one particular area. As we came up, the car took off to the right and got off at the exit for the hospital. My immediate thought was, oh my gosh, that person might have been, maybe somebody's in the hospital and they're trying to get there quickly. And that made me feel, I had a number of feelings. I felt like an idiot because I'm going, who do I think I am that this person doesn't even know me, and I'm feeling like it's a personal offense on me, like they don't even know me. And so that caused me, from an action standpoint, it just helped me to kind of slow down and give more grace and ultimately be happier. And so that's, I don't know if that's an exact, like, that's one way to look at this model, but I'd like to make this bigger because this is about deliberate thinking. So when you look at, and this is actually Brooke Castile, who has a company, an organization called the Life Coach School. Um, this is actually kind of expanding on things that I have talked about in the past, talking about belief drives behavior. So, what do you believe? What you believe drives what you think, how you feel, how you act, and the results in your life. So, this is very similar. And so, when we think about circumstances, I want you to think about circumstances, and these are things that are indisputable, neutral facts, no emotion, something everyone can agree on. And like in a court of law, this would be a fact. Then there's the thought. A thought is a sentence that you have in your mind. It's an interpretation of the facts. And this can vary greatly from person to person. And we're going to get into a couple examples here in a minute. And I would love to hear from you on what your thoughts are. So then a feeling is caused by our thoughts. And this is an emotion which causes a physical vibration in your body. And so if you've ever felt sad or you feel happy, you feel joyful, you've had a thought previous to your feeling. So it's like you can't feel a certain way without having a thought about it first. And then your feelings, those drive your actions, and this can be an action or an inaction. And so these are caused, it may be a physical or mental. It can also, like I said, it can be an inaction. And then the result, your results are caused by our actions, which is a consequence or an outcome or an effect. And it's always tied directly to the original thought. So hang with me here because this is so interesting. Now, I just included this here. This is the emotion wheel. So, lots of times, I don't know about you, but this is no disrespect. I love my family. Everybody has done the best they can. But I grew up in an environment where it was more like, you better stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Can you relate? Has anybody else had this? And it was a lot of passive aggressive type stuff. Like I never really knew how to articulate how I felt. I had to learn that as an adult. When I would be upset, I'd have to like dig down and figure out like what was it that makes me feel this way. And this is a really cool tool where these inside feelings, if you recognize these like high level feelings, you can dig and go backwards and really get to the root of why you felt a certain way. And so this kind of ties into what we talked about a minute ago with our feelings. So we can get a little more granular. And what's neat about this for any of you who are, enjoy math, which I don't, but I did do pretty good in algebra only because Mrs. Downs forced me to stay after class all the time. And so um, this is where you solve for X. So if you know what the circumstance is, or if you know what the feeling is, you can plug that in and you can reverse engineer and determine what it is that you are feeling. And now this is where I want to raise the awareness of this. This is where what you think about, it really, a lot of how we feel when we think about a self-coaching model and these circumstances, what we think about it, our feelings, our actions, our results, ultimately it comes from what state we're in. A lot of times if we're in a state of mind that is balanced, which is healthy, then when circumstances happen, our thoughts and our feelings, actions, and results will all be different. And in our culture today, we are downloaded with so much negativity and so much ugliness. Like if you watch the news, if you get immersed in any of that stuff, that's like that's like food for your brain and your spirit. And that can affect how you perceive things. So I want to encourage you that think how what you're feeding your mind and your spirit with, people, with images, with what we listen to, the words, what we watch on TV, all of those things affect our state. And so I want to give you a couple of examples here that around circumstances. So let's just say that you've been laid off. That's the circumstance. Now I want you to say, well, what thoughts do I have about this circumstance? How do I feel when I think this thought? What is this? What are the actions, and then what the results would be. This is a default model, meaning that you're just letting your mind go crazy and you're not managing your thinking. So if you just allow yourself, if you're in a negative state, you can say, I'm disposable, like I've been laid off, I'm sad. I just want to go sit and eat ice cream and watch Netflix, and I'm not doing anything. So now I'm unemployed. And then all of this keeps tying back. So your result will then tie back to your thought. Now, here is where you can be deliberate in your thinking. Let's say you've been laid off. This happened to me. Now, I did go through a funk, and that's okay. And it's all right to sit there and feel bad, but you want to snap out of that pretty quickly. And this is where it's that awareness to change your thoughts. So rather than say I'm disposable, I have an opportunity to start my own business. How does that make me feel? And how does that make you feel? Like if this has been a situation or if you've had something happen to you, then it's like you're energized. It's like a whole different place. And then it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to work on this. I'm going to start researching things. I'm going to take action. And within a period of time, then I'm going to launch my business. So that deliberate model versus the default model. Well, thank you, whoever just commented. I can't see who you are because this is StreamYard and they don't show you who is on there unless you click on it. But thank you for that encouragement. And I hope that this is helpful to you. I want to just give you a couple more examples and of deliberate versus default thinking. So let's just say, I don't know if this has happened to you, but you've got 20 things on your to do list. I mean, is that common for all of us? The thought can be, I have so much to do, and this has happened to me. Like I'm never going to get caught up, and you can just feel overwhelmed. And then what happens? I don't know. You can freeze up, you can procrastinate, and then you don't get anything done. And then that kind of circles back to like, I have so much to do. I can't get things done. I'll never catch up. Now, that's the default thinking. But if we want to switch over to deliberate thinking, we can say, oh, I've got 20 things on my to do list. Hey, I've got 30 minutes. I have time to get 2 tasks done. I'm motivated. I'm getting those done. I set a timer, I get them done, and now I've got those off my list. And that is taking charge of your thoughts and your actions and your feelings. And so, you know, another example, and this is really I have this with Ben and Jerry's ice cream. But we're going to use this example. You ate 10 cookies, right? The Girl Scout Thin Mints. I mean, I think a sleeve should be considered a serving. And so your thought is like, I have no control. What's the feeling that you get? Self-loathing. And then what happens? You procrastinate on, like starting your healthy eating habits. Then you gain weight. Like it's a vicious cycle, right? Well, deliberate thinking is if you have those 10 cookies, rather than beat yourself up, you say, "Oh, you know what? I may not have control today, but I am learning self-control. I can learn self-control." So then it's like it's that hopeful, it's a growth mindset. And then the action is like, "Okay, I got to clean out my cupboard. I'm going to get some healthy choices in here." And the results are going to be weight management because that's what we want. We want that healthy mindset towards food. I'm going to skip through this one here, but I'm going to go here and pulling it together, right? So, what we talked about is we have circumstances, then that creates a thought, which creates a feeling, and that causes us to do something, take an action or an inaction, and that ultimately gives us our results. And so, you see that thoughts and results all it circles back around to each other. And so, ultimately, we can control how we think. I just had this with my son. So he's going to college. We went for orientation and he is so awesome and amazing. And I don't know if you're a mom, but it's like, he's my first to go to college and we went for orientation and he stayed overnight, right? Because he's staying in the dorms. And then he was away, he was off doing his thing. And I'm all for my kids. Like we've tried to raise them to be independent thinkers and self-sufficient, like set them up for success in their adult life. And that is such a double-edged sword, right? As a mom, because on one hand, I'm thrilled that they are independent, but then I was texting him and I didn't hear anything. And so here is what I wrote down because I'll do a thought download, right? So this is one of the things. Circumstance, Carson's going to college. Thought, he's going to ignore me and I won't be important to him anymore. I could cry saying that. What does that make me feel? It makes me feel sad. And then what's the action? So then I kind of pull away because I'm like, if he's not going to respond to me, I'm not going to, I mean, that doesn't sound right. I mean, I know that's not good mom stuff, but ultimately, what's the result of that? If I pull away and I just want to say, just don't, just leave them alone, our relationship's not going to grow or be close. So that is one thing. Well, then my deliberate thinking, my deliberate shift, circumstance, Carson's going to college, the thought, he's entering an exciting time of self exploration and independence. And my feeling is excited for him and proud of him. My action is that I'm going to send him encouraging messages and be there to support him and not have any expectations. And although I did talk to him and say, listen, just give me a likes, give me some acknowledgement. And he agreed and he apologized. But the result is then it builds a stronger bond in our relationship. And, um, ultimately, that's what we want, right? So for you, I want you to think about what are some things, and these can be circumstances that are really small, like, what I was just, I mean, that's with my son. It can be just certain things that happen, or can be, like when you get laid off. Again, it just really comes back to how you perceive things, how you decide to interpret whatever the circumstances are. I don't know if you've ever heard, there's Viktor Frankl was, I'm trying to think of the book. I'm trying to think of the book that he wrote, but he was in a concentration camp and he survived. And it's like, if you read this book, Viktor Frankl, and it was like how he survived, it all came back to how he was thinking. Like, he had things and how he interpreted things and how he got through that. And it really, managing our thinking, it's so hard. But again, I if we have that awareness and we decide to talk to ourselves versus listen to ourselves, and have an awareness when you're feeling in a funk or how you're interpreting things, and choose a different way to interpret them, you can have so much more joy in your life, because I believe God put us here to thrive, and I don't believe we're here to suffer. So it's comes back to managing our thoughts and being careful what you feed your mind, right? So like I said before, your state has an effect on when you implement this self-coaching model. Turn off the news, listen to music with positive lyrics, get outside in nature. There is energy in nature. We're all made up of energy. Be around people that lift you up. Um, and so I'm going to sign off now. I hope that that's been helpful, and we'll see you next time. Bye.